Welcome to today's podcast. We have on Scott Portt, as most of you probably know him, Mr. Portt. We covered a lot of things in this episode.
We did. My whole Potterville thing, the prison thing, and the school thing, right?
And, I mean, that's pretty much the best summary you could get. Right. This episode's amazing. Lots of laughs, lots of good stories. You get to hear from an amazing person, so just enjoy it. Did you go to college, right? Or how did that...
Well,
I feel like I
did
remember.
not. Well, I did. I got, when I was, the year I graduated, I actually started out like everybody else. I started out at Burger King. So my first year, my first couple of years of working was at a Burger King. It was actually pretty cool because it was the world's largest Burger King. It's our busiest. It was East Lansing. It was Frandor. Really? It was the Burger King of Frandor. It's actually a new place now. It's been tore down and rebuilt. But yeah, that Burger King in Frandor, I think it was rebuilt. But anyways, that was like the busiest one. So, you know, the year I was out of high school, I was out on campus, you know, a lot. I met a lot of people, you know, there too. Yeah. That I spent a lot of time at. I kind of say I went to Michigan State for a few years there.
Does that mean were you living at home still? Or were you on your own?
I was for a little while. I think me and my wife got our first place maybe the second summer after I graduated. I think that first summer where we stayed at our parents' house, and then we bought this we rented this small apartment in town in Charlotte. It's Charlotte, Michigan, not Charlotte.
I always have read it as Charlotte, Michigan.
You do, because North Carolina is Charlotte.
Yeah.
That's the famous one because Charlotte, North Carolina, but it's Charlotte.
Yeah, when I heard you say that the first time I was
it's Charlotte. Yeah. I got a cousin that lives in Charlotte, so yeah, we always talk about the different pronunciations. So yeah, and then I worked at a factory for a few years after that.
What'd you make in the factory?
I made screen doors. I made aluminum screen doors, and you can see a bunch of scars on my fingers and hands because I
just got beat up the whole time.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was a nasty job. And I started seeing people that were like lifers there, or, you know, that was their career, and I'm that doesn't seem like this is what I want to do. I mean, it was good for what I was needing it for at the time, and that was just trying to get myself established with my beautiful girlfriend at the time and try to, you know, see what I can do with my life.
Mm-hmm. Nice girlfriend.
And then, you know, if you want to get into, and then, anyways, I lived in Charlotte, and my sister's brother stopped by one time, and he said he was going to Charlotte High School because there was a meeting about corrections. I didn't know what corrections was at the time. I mean, I knew my mom threatened me with, if you don't knock it off, you're going to end up in prison, but I didn't know that was called corrections, like they actually correct you there or something. I don't know.
Wait, so was that like juvie kind of, or
corrections?
Or
well,
literally
Department of Corrections is everything in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
It's anything over more than a year. If you get sentenced to anything more than a year, you end up in prison or the Department of Corrections. Anything under a year, you usually stay in the county jail.
Okay, so the county jail is corrections, or
well, they do have corrections in the county jail.
Okay.
Like the jail part is corrections.
Okay.
So there's still corrections officers in the county jail, but when I say Michigan Department of Corrections, I'm talking about the prisons, the state penitentiaries in Michigan.
Okay.
So, but yeah, which is different than the county jails, because the county jails, they don't normally, if you're sentenced to 1 year, 1 day, you're going to be in prison for 1 year and 1 day. If you're sentenced to less than 1 year, you're going to be in the county jail, and you'll never end up in prison. I mean, you might eventually, but not that bit.
Okay.
So yeah, he stopped by and just one day pulled in the driveway and came in, and we were talking, and he said he was going to this corrections meeting at Charlotte High School, and I'm like, all right, I'll ride with you. And we went, and we learned that you could go to LCC on a 12-week course, but it was like 5 to 9 every night for 12 weeks. And it was like 6.
Oh, every night.
Every night. So that's 5 days a week. And it was like, there was like 6 different classes, like psychology and all kinds of stuff that you every 2 weeks you change your professor or whoever it was. Yeah. So we end up, he went home, and my wife's mom called that night and said, hey, if you're interested, I'll help pay for that school too. I mean, it was accelerated classes, but I'll help pay for yours and Brent's, my wife's brother. So that's how I got into corrections. Me and Brent started going to Pottersville. High school, there was a class up there that was 5 nights a week from 5 to 9 or whatever. I was working at the factory during the day. And
Oh my! So you were like,
that's
you woke up early.
Yep.
You're back in your hometown.
Yep.
And then you're right to school.
Yep. Then I had
sleep and repeat.
Yep. And
So was this
How long did that-
super?
I had one small. My daughter was born in '88, and this was like about the time she was born. She was born in early '88, and I started going through. I think I ended up getting through the classes in like maybe October, November of '88. When I that whole 12 weeks before that.
Okay.
Were you, when you were going through this process, was your mental like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do this any longer? Because for me, I'd feel like, oh my gosh, I'm working all day now. Or were you just strictly like, I'm providing, let's go?
Well, I felt obligated because my wife's mom paid for it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I
you
didn't.
just
This wasn't something I want to screw up. I mean, her
Yeah.
brother wasn't screwing it up, so I couldn't screw this.
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, you couldn't be like,
come on, Brent, do something wrong. So I can.
yeah,
Hey,
like,
you want to fail that test?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's how that started. And then after I got out of them classes, we actually had a graduation. I had pretty good grades. I had like a 3.9 grade point average in
yeah,
that.
that's very good.
So yeah, that's one of my big accomplishments.
that is huge. 3.9 is not
Yeah,
easy.
that's
Yeah,
not
plus
easy.
raising the baby, helping my wife
yeah,
raise the baby.
working all day.
Yeah, working
3.9,
all day,
and then,
and raising
and
a
then
That's
doing
a-
that. Yeah, yeah.
That's very impressive.
So yeah, there was a hiatus on my life there for a little while, and it was just all about
I
work,
bet.
school, and trying to be who I was. You know,
yeah, but
at
it
the
helped
same
you
time.
stay focused.
It did help me stay focused. Yeah, and then we got hired. Both got hired. Eventually down at Jackson Prison. We actually ended up at the same prison. Me and her brother Brent.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, he got killed in a car accident in '93, which was about 5 years after we started.
Oh, wow.
So-
While he was working?
No, he was I don't know who's going to watch us. He was he was out looking for a girlfriend really early in the morning.
In the morning.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
I can
after like a
Yeah.
Yeah,
a
picking up
bar
music.
gig thing.
Yeah.
And he ended up he was missing for a while for like 5
wow.
weeks, and then they
Oh my.
found his car in a ditch, and he was in there and all that kind
Holy
of stuff.
cow.
So yeah, he was like 22, 23 years old at the time. So that kind of sucked. The same year my dad, we buried him, and then at 51 or 52, my dad died in '93 too. A month later, we buried my dad.
Oh,
after
so
we
you were
buried
just,
Brent.
I mean, that's two huge losses, right?
Yeah, and then 6 months later, my wife's mom died.
Oh my god.
So that's 3 pretty big losses.
Right. I mean, yeah, your life just went from work to sad.
yeah.
Just a bunch
And
of-
at that time, I my daughter was 4 and my son was under a year, so we had a lot of stuff to deal with.
How did that
you know.
affect you? Did you feel like that kind of like slowed you down, or?
I don't know if it slowed me down. I don't know what I was doing to slow down, but I think it really affected the way I look at death, even to this day. A lot of people think of it, I know there's going to be loss in our lives. You think.
Yeah.
There are a lot
Yeah,
of people.
this-
Well, we
this
can
is
talk
sad.
about people dying for a year.
Yeah. A little happier note.
Yeah, on a
How
happier
was
note.
prison?
Yeah,
I was working
yeah.
at
So I got hired at the prison, and I worked at Jackson Prison. I got hired at it was called Northside at the time. Back in the day, before the early '80s or before the '80s, Jackson Prison was the world's largest walled prison,
Which means
which means that there was no fences around it. It was just all block. It was just all block. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
nice.
So there was no prison. Let me find this picture that I keep up all the time.
And this was your first. This is your
Well-
being. Were you super like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a prison guard, or were you kind of like, they're not ready for me, or maybe in between?
Well, when you're going through these classes, the ones through LCC,
Yeah.
they kind of take you on a tour. In the very first tour they took me on, was a tour of Jackson Prison. It was called Central at the time, and that was like where a lot of lifers and stuff were. And I'm thinking, these guys are locked up all the time, and we're not going to be around them and stuff. But they take a group of us 12 young kids in there, and those guys were like popping their doors open, stepping out on the galleries, cat whistling the girls
they
and
can
some
just go
guys,
there.
But yeah, so yeah, they did. They had a way. We called them door plugs, so they had a way that they could keep their doors open if they wanted to. They just put a little piece of wood in there or something. It wouldn't shut all the way if you didn't go around pinching doors while you're making rounds. you'd find doors that could open. So yeah, a lot of these guys just stepped out the first, and then there was a bunch of them walking around on, on the base gallery or whatever. So I was like, holy crap, this is what I'm getting into. I think we lost probably 3 people that night.
Oh yeah.
3 people that didn't come back.
I thought you meant.
Were there any?
No, we didn't. Nobody died that
I was
night.
like, wow.
We
Oh,
lost
yeah, we
3
lost them all.
people.
They never came back
The
out.
prisoners
And I
came
still
up
went back. Yeah, no.
And you're like,
no, I mean, I'm
fine.
talking
I'll do this
about.
for the next 30 years.
Yeah. No, they just didn't come back to classes. They
Gotcha.
decided.
Which is a lot better. Than
Yeah. So if you look at this picture, this was Jackson Prison.
That's
This is the
pretty big.
world's largest walled prison at
wow.
the time, and this was before the 80s. And what they did was there was over 5,000 or something like that prisoners in this area with one administration. Well, they started having like riots and the prisoners were starting to be uncontrolled, because there was too many prisoners and not enough staff and stuff. So they what they did is they put a fence around the north side, and they called that north side. And they put a fence around the south side, and they called that south side.
Very creative.
So when I started in 1989, they had this completed, the breakdown completed. So there was north side, central, and south side. South side was a trustee division, the lowest division. North side was still kind of a level 4, level 3, which is one step below the level 5.
What is the highest level?
5 is the maximum facility. So if you're at a level 5 facility, you're locked up 23 hours a day.
Holy cow.
Yeah, you only get like 1 hour, and that's all chained up. You don't come out without
Oh my gosh.
any leg irons or chains.
So that's like
There's
if you've
always
done-
prisoners.
Is that
yeah,
like-
that's if you screw up while you're in prison at a level 4.
Okay.
Okay.
So nobody gets sentenced to level 5. You know what I'm saying?
Is it more like a punishment for people in level 4 or?
Basically,
Okay.
or even 2. I mean, you could be,
Oh, okay.
you could go from a level 2 to a level 5. Depends on what you do. I mean, if you stab somebody in prison, you're going to end up in level 5 for a while. If you beat up a guard, you might end up in, not always, but sometimes you end up in level 5. But the level 4 is one step below that. So the guys in level 4, they have more freedom. So there was two officers and 350 prisoners in the units that I was working at a level 4 prison. So, those guys were still lifers. They were still murderers, serial killers, all that kind of stuff. But they just hadn't stepped up to the level 5 position yet. And some of them don't, some people come in there and they do good time. So they don't end up at level 5. But, we do deal with the ones that end up in level 5.
And you were with all 5 levels? Like you would be like,
I never worked in a level 5 prison.
Okay, you didn't.
I worked in the level 4. Yeah, back in the day, back in 1989. Back in the day,
I hate those back
I
in
was
the
a
day.
badass. I used to kick everybody's ass in prison. No, I did not. No, that's not the way you go into it. Back in the day, there was more control of the levels.
Okay.
Because they weren't quite as concerned with the money aspects then. Now a lot of guys get knocked down. They should be a level 4, but they're level 2 because it's cheaper to keep them at level 2, or they should be a level 5, but they keep them at a level 4 because it's cheaper to keep them at a level 4. So I see a lot of complaints from my coworkers that are still working now that they're, and it happens. I mean, it happened. We had the same issue back in the 90s until Selleck went out and killed a bunch of people, and then everything started tightening up again. So we had a prisoner, Patrick Selleck, that got out a little bit early. I think on parole or something back in the 90s. You can look him up. And when he got out, he went and picked up his girlfriend and went and killed a few people.
With his girlfriend or his
Yeah,
girlfriend?
I think his girlfriend was with him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but
Just a nice
Did
date.
you ever see him in the prison?
I think I might have.
Was
Not-
he like
not
at
like
level
you
5 a
spent-
lot? Or was he?
Well, he probably was when he first got back.
Yeah.
But I was there for almost 30 years, so
Okay.
I don't remember seeing him. Actually, the prison that he got out of was the prison I was working in.
Well, so you started at Jackson, right?
I started there, and I stayed there.
Okay. And you're
But I switched from that level. In that prison, switched around. I started in 89 and I left in 2010. But in the meantime, it had been a level 2, a level 3, a level 4. And then we switched over to the Reception and Guidance Center. So anybody that got sentenced in the state of Michigan came through that prison.
okay.
So at that time, everybody was level 5. Everybody that comes in is level 5. But the difference between that level 5 and level 5 in a secure unit is those guys still have general population or general. They still get out and get yard and do whatever. They're just classified as level 5 because they haven't been classified yet.
And walk me through a normal day at work. Like, do you clock, what time are you getting there? What do you do? Like, really paint the picture. Cause I feel like, I mean, have you seen The Green Mile at all?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, you know what? The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption
Yeah.
are probably the two
They do a good
best
job, you'd
prison
say.
movies that I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's our only, I mean, now that kind of says, okay, I basically did something like that. in
Right.
regard- But walk me
Kinda.
through,
Yeah.
kind of paint that
I mean,
picture.
the
like,
Green
were you
Mile,
staying-
that was like, that was in
insane.
like
That was like,
death
yeah.
row or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
That guy
that
was
was
death row. And
definitely-
that,
That's
don't
a
we
lot
wish
different.
that somebody had them powers to do with the
Oh,
big
yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
What was his name? He just died recently.
Yeah, I did.
He
see
was
that.
the big-
What was his name?
I can't remember.
The big dude. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
yeah. So walk you through. So when I first started at 22 years old, in '89, the Department of Corrections was hiring a bunch of people at the time. They had gotten money or people were retiring. Anyways, there was a ton of people getting hired. So there was a bunch of us fresh into the prison. Even at the facility I was at, there was a bunch of us youngsters that would go in there. I would start at, let me get this right. I'd start at 5:56 in the morning
Oh,
Wow.
and I'd get out at 2.
why would
Why
the
5:56? Yeah.
Why 5:56? Because we have to have a roll call
Oh,
before we go
Why
out
at
and do shift.
5:56?
Because a shift change is at 6 o'clock.
oh, so roll
So
call
I have
on
to
the
do roll call to find out what happened the shift before, and they check us all out to make sure that we're all sober and supposed to, dress like we're supposed to dress and all that kind of stuff. And then they send us on our way, and then we relieve the third shift that gets to wake up and leave. Sorry, third shift.
the third shift. I'm guessing the hours were just crazy. Did you ever work at third?
I did not like third shift. No. The only reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people are sleeping on third shift. I mean, prisoners. There's not a lot of activity
Yeah.
on third shift, so the officers get to.
Is that nice or is that
It was for some of them. It was never. That's never.
more boring for you?
Yeah, it was more boring for me.
Okay.
Like I said, I was 22 years old. I
you-
wanted to.
And you had a really good relationship, you'd say. I mean, not good relationship, but I meant to say you were good with the prisoners. Like you knew how to talk to them.
Yeah, I
And it
could
wasn't
most of the time. Yeah, most of the
wasn't
time
like-
I could de-escalate situations pretty easily. So that was me. It's just like here's what I tell people. 80% of my career was just like this. Just me sitting around kicking it with guys, learning about what they did or how they did it, or learning, all their behaviors and stuff like that. Just kicking it. 20% sucked. Of that 10%, or 10% of that 20%, I never want to see again or talk about. I mean,
Just
I do,
heard awful things.
yeah, I do talk about it sometimes, but it's just stuff that
Really,
when I'm
like,
telling my
dark.
prison stories, I don't really get into, people dropping off fourth gallery and laying next to me and splatting all over me
Holy
and stuff.
cow.
That's not something that you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
do
no.
on a daily basis.
Yeah, no.
It's get a shovel and scoop somebody up, throw them in a bag and send them on their way.
And that just kind of
That happens.
I kind of interrupted your day by day.
Right.
So you're at roll call. Is it the sense of fear or is it kind of like just another?
Well, you know what the good thing about me was, and I tell people this all the time, is I lived in Charlotte, and it was actually 50 miles from my door to the prison door. So I had 50 miles to de-escalate myself. So if I had a bad night or a bad morning with my wife and kids, I had that time to think about, them things and get that out of my mind before I walked through the gates. You never want to go in with a bad attitude because that just causes problems. So I changed myself in that 50-mile drive. I changed myself from my personal life to my prison life.
Gotcha.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
On the way home, if I had a bad day at work, if I seen stuff that I didn't want to see, if I had to deal with stuff I didn't want to deal with, I had 50 miles to de-escalate myself. And so when I got home, I left work there, and you know what I'm saying, vice versa.
100%.
So my wife and kids didn't hear a lot of my stories growing up until I'd have like poker parties at the house or something, and all the guys would show up and they're like, "Hey, remember the time we did this and that?" And my wife, they'd leave and she'd be like, "You never told me about that." I'm like, yeah, I just didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I bet that's hard to
So-
talk about with your family.
So I did my roll call at 6:52 or whatever it was. I think it's 7-8 minutes before our shift change, and then walked through the gates and walked across the yard. And my I worked in housing most of my career as a corrections officer.
Gotcha.
So I'd walk to a housing unit, and it was the big 4-story brick building with cells that were 4 stories high. There was like 100 I think there was 76 on each side, and then we ended up double bunking too. So we had a ton of prisoners in there with two officers.
Oh, it was 2?
Yeah, 2 officers, and it was just the housing unit. So we dealt with most of the time it was like a bid job. So I dealt with the same prisoners on a daily basis. So I got to know them.
There's still the troublemakers. In every society.
I knew who was running the block, and and who I could use to help me.
Oh yeah,
run the block,
hey, I know you.
Yeah.
And what was that? Was that kind of like a? Not like I feel like this is kind of a bad way to say it, like a white way to say it, of a gangster. Is it like a gangster, like was in charge, like the head, the mob?
Well, yeah, always, there was prison gangs, or they called them religious service people. In prison, the guys that were in prison, they called it religion, but they were prison gangs. And one of the head honchos was one of my main porters. So he would take care of a lot of the smaller stuff, and it wasn't like violent ways of doing it. Just like young kids. I don't know. I mean, like if a young kid was giving me or my partner a hard time, he'd come up to us later on and apologize, and we knew it was because Connery, I'll say it. He died. Connery had talked to him and said, "Hey, they run a pretty good block, and we don't want to," because I could take things, I could take microwaves from them, I could take yard time from them and stuff like that, and I could do it for the whole unit. If I didn't want to break a unit out for yard, I'd stall on it. If somebody pissed me off, if I didn't like the way it was going, so those guys the elders would take care of some of that stuff for us,
and
we use that. Good. Yeah.
I feel like that's what you have to do with the young kids too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for
hey,
sure.
Can you just go talk to them?
Yeah, you always need somebody to talk to, or somebody that, they, the young guys, of course, I don't know what exactly was said by Connery, but I know that, nobody ever came down with a black eye and said, "Hey, I apologize." I know they say, "Hey, I'm sorry that, I dealt with, I talked to you the way I did earlier. I'll try to be cool, So that worked out most of the time, and not most of the time, some of the time. Right.
And it was really just like, so were you co-running with that other officer with you there at the day? Or was it like, hey, I'm your assistant? Did you have an assistant?
No, we were both equal. Yeah, we were both equal. We were just partners. It was me and another guy that looked like me. It's another bigger white guy, and they always used to get us confused. So like grievances, they could write grievances on you, like if they didn't like the way you talked to them or something or whatever it was, they could write grievances. And so we'd switch our name tags sometimes just so they'd write a grievance on the other guy, and then we could say, "Hey, I wasn't even there that day. How could it have been me?"
That's hilarious.
So yeah, all of us white guys look the same too.
Did you so this was you were in that same, would you say you're in the same block from us your whole time?
I switched around units.
Was there ever a really bad block?
I mean,
you don't want to get
well. No, in the at Northside where I worked, it was called Northside. There was 3 units or 3 blocks, I guess, and they were pretty much all equal. It just, it wasn't like we had all the bad guys in one block and all the good guys in one block. It was just they got assigned when they came in. Then when they walked through the prison, they got assigned to whatever cell was open. So it wasn't like they had anything. Later on in my career, when I was working at a level 1 facility, they did segregate a little bit. They put like the sexual CSC guys, criminal sexual conduct guys, in
just because they would get beat so bad, or
no? At that time, they weren't. Back
really?
when I first started, they were. They would never tell you that they were in there for CSC. They were all bank robbers or whatever. And then, and back then, it was harder to read files. You had to get permission to try to look at a file and stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to read files because then I'd start to treat people differently. If I knew somebody was
that's
in there for CSC, then
because I feel like that's a normal. I mean, we
and back then the prisoners they got with them guys, but as my career progressed and I moved over to it was kind of a parole camp. It was a level 1. The guys were doing less than a year before they got out on parole and stuff. So it was, those guys. There was a unit that was up on the hill that was all CSC guys, and they would come in and out of that. So they were labeled. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They were labeled. Everybody knew that whoever came out of there, right? So what was the question?
did that put like a target on their back or?
Not really. I
Really?
mean, I thought there would be more issues because of the way I grew up, the way it was when I grew up in the prison, but there wasn't a lot of issues like that. Every once in a while there would be, and it had to do with, some chomo did this, a child molester was a chomo, so, but yeah, it's not as bad as you thought you would think. It was when I first started, but not when I ended up in 2016 when I retired.
Really?
No, I moved from the, so then I was then it was the prison that I started out at ended up being the reception guidance center. So anybody that got sentenced in the state of Michigan, we would see walk through. I called it the back door. It was the big door that they drop them off in county vans, and they slam that door, and we had this guy we called him Guardzilla. He was like 6'5", 320 pounds.
Oh my
at the time.
gosh.
And he'd take these guys off the buses. So like if Berrien County came down there with all their hoodlums or whatever, they'd pull up a van with like 20 guys in it, and or bus or a van, and Guardzilla.
It's hilarious.
I won't
name.
say his name.
Would you call him
They do-
Godzilla to his face? Like, Godzilla!
The prisoners did. No, I called him
His name.
other thing. Well, not always.
The prison lingo.
Yeah, I called him other thing. But yeah, so he would get those guys off the bus, and they'd come in the county jumpsuits and county chains, county leg irons and stuff.
Is that like the orange jumpsuit? Or
Well,
how is
counties. It could be. It depends on what
just like
county it
what
is.
county.
Yeah, it could be orange, blue.
it doesn't really
Could be
matter.
striped. Yeah.
In the
yeah.
movies, I feel like it's always either striped or orange.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
They're never-
orange is
never
the
seen,
new
like, a
black.
blue.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's
that-
I've never even
That's
watched
a
it, so I don't
show.
know.
I watched
It is a
maybe
prison
two.
show.
Yeah, it is kind of a
Yeah,
kind
you
of.
probably don't want
Do
to
you-
watch
Yeah,
those.
I was gonna
I
say,
don't-
do you feel yourself like being drawn towards that kind of like you said you watched The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption?
You know what I'm drawn to? I'm drawn to like Forensic Files and stuff like that, where people figure out how do they get caught.
Oh,
You know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That kind
More
of
like
stuff.
detective stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times, right, even to this day, I'll be watching forensic. It's a long story. We're getting off subject again. My wife is
No,
a big
we
forensic.
can get off subject all you want.
My wife is a big forensic file person. I mean, we lay in bed at night and Forensic Files is on our TV. I don't know why she's into it. She's into
All-
it.
I
Right
swear.
before bed.
My girlfriend
all night
loves-
long.
My mom, yeah.
No, all night long. The TV's on. If
All
I turn
women,
it off,
I
she
feel
turns
like,
it back on.
love investigations.
Yeah,
and
you know why,
stuff
though?
Dealing with why is it?
Because they're trying to figure out how to do it to you.
We always joke about that with my mom. She watches
Seriously,
Dateline
because I mean, I'm
24/7.
not serious.
Yeah, but seriously.
Yeah, but seriously, I always say that, and then a couple years ago, I was talking to the cable guy. I called the cable guy. I was bitching because my cable was too expensive and stuff, and he goes, well, I can downgrade your service a little bit, save you this much money, but you'll lose some channels. And I'm like, okay, what channels are you gonna lose? Am I gonna lose? And he got to HLN or whatever that Forensic Files was on. I said, nah. I said, I can't lose that.
That's how you lose your wife.
He says, why? I said, because my wife watches that all the time. I think she's trying to figure out how to kill me or something like that. And he goes, well, then you don't want it. And I go, no, if she doesn't have it, she'll have time to kill me. So let's just keep that.
That's
She can
hilarious.
just keep learning.
So
or
let's
executing.
just keep that one. So I didn't change. I'm still paying outrageous prices for my cable. But to this day, I'll watch Forensic Files. And if I hear it's a Michigan case, I'll look and I'll pay attention, and it's probably some of the times it's people that I've ran into
Really?
where I've known
Wow.
in prison,
You're like,
I've known the
I
case.
remember.
Yeah, I know this
Hey,
guy.
that's my buddy.
I talk about it to my wife before
Yeah.
it actually happens, and then she's like, "Oh wow!" And I got an app on my phone where I can look any name up in the state of Michigan to see if you've been in prison, and I do that a lot to see.
Oh, wow.
Is that a free app or is it an app that
No,
you have to be
it's free.
certified?
No, it's a free app. It's called
Oh.
Otis.
You can just look up people and see if they have any criminal record at all.
Well, no, this is prisoners that are currently locked up in the state of Michigan.
Oh, okay.
I can also go back a couple years for people that had been in prison, but most of the time it's called Otis. It's a Offender Tracking Information System. Is that right? Is that Otis? Offender
You're asking the wrong guy.
Information
Yeah, that's
System.
Otis.
Yeah, is that Otis? Okay, that's it then. I think I spelled it right.
Oh,
yeah.
the spelling. I
talking
thought you were
about
saying
OTIS, I would guess.
Offender Tracking Information System.
Yeah,
I
that's-
believe it.
Yeah, that's what
we're gonna believe it.
that's what it is.
We're not
like,
going nuts right now. Be like,
It took me a minute, but that's what it is.
Yeah, hey, you got it done.
It's something like that.
Did your family somewhat struggle? Like, hey, because and something I saw in The Green Mile, for an example, is Tom Hanks' character. His wife was kind of like, hey, how long you're going to work a lot. You're dealing with these tragic things. And I know you said you had a good way of separating those two worlds. Did you ever feel like there was a point in your career with so much strain on you? You're like, I don't know if I can hear any more of these stories. Or was it something you're like, I feel like you're so good at hearing people's issues.
I think we all struggle with something like that sometime in our career. I mean, I think maybe 10 or 15 years into it, I thought, man, I don't know if I could do this anymore. I was vested, I got a pension now.
Yeah.
So I knew if I worked 25 years and I turned 51, I was going to make money the rest of my life. It was going to be sent to me. But yeah, about 10 or 15 years into it, I was starting to get stressed out a little bit. And I thought that I wanted to be a construction worker. So I took a little bit of time off the prison, and I worked with a buddy of mine that was into construction. And I did that for one day, and I went back to prison.
One day.
I'd
rather be in prison.
Yeah. Wait a minute. This sucks, man. I'm going back to prison.
It's so bad about construction.
I think just the labor. I was the grunt, and I think he was trying to prove that to me. He's like, "Hey, you want to come out here and do construction? I'll show you. Go over and pick up them 45 2x4s and bring them up on the roof."
That's
what
we did in the film.
Right.
It was like, obviously we had Sam, who was so generous.
Right.
Like, come look at the camera. Come help us with this. But
not everybody was Sam.
People below.
Yeah.
Sam was like, come help me. The people below Sam are like, hey, you two, you're helping us. Pick that up. No talking. Take this.
Was Sam the one large in charge of that whole
he
thing?
was, but he's so into what's happening in the film that his job, their producer's job, is to make sure we aren't near him. So once he saw us, he's like, come upstairs with me and look at the camera. When he's not there, the producer's like, I don't know if did you listen to our first day on the film set? If you didn't, don't worry about it.
I think I did when you guys were talking about traveling around and picking up donuts and all that.
Yeah.
We were like, oh my gosh, we are getting our butts kicked.
Yeah, that's how it was. That's exactly
and we
how
realized we're like, okay, yes, this is just.
You were the grunt.
Yeah,
we were the grunt. They were shooting.
We literally made a
really
joke
want to do this because this is how you're going to start out.
Yeah. So we kind of got that sense. We're like, okay, this is still fun. Thank God Sam is here to give us that little, hey, how are you guys doing?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure some directors don't even want, like some directors I know are like, I'm filming today, no one talk to me, but he at least could
he was super nice.
Was he the director of that film?
He was director and cinematographer.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there was a couple there was a couple directors. It was kind of a group thing. Like he had a bunch of his friends. I think there's a lot of people he likes working with. So I think it was definitely a more laid back thing.
And it was in Lansing that we were filming.
So I think we might have been, I think we might have driven at one point in
You
Potterville.
probably did.
I feel like we may.
Well, if it was,
is it a lot of like open farmland?
Yeah.
Let me guess. Small town open farmland.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to figure out, isn't it?
They go in
anywhere.
See any cows? Yeah. It was pretty much flat farmland.
How far away
Michigan.
is East Lansing from Potterville, though?
Probably 35 miles.
Oh,
south.
we probably didn't then.
Well, what are you talking about? Go to for what? Would you?
Well, we had to. There was 2 locations, and one we went even more into East Lansing, and we got sent to this. It was this Indian place for food, and we drove like 20 minutes. Maybe it was towards Potterville. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it probably.
I know of Joe's. I don't know.
What would
Indian
we? Yeah.
food.
So it's just is Joe's really, and Joe's again just. It's known for that amazing. Is the deep fried burger the '1 thing?
No, Gizzard.
Gizzard.
Yeah, they have Gizzard Fest.
Gizzard
they have Gizzard Fest in the summer.
Explain what gizzards are to Luke.
Yeah,
Gizzards are chicken stomachs. It's what they're.
My.
Yeah,
what
that's
their
why
crap
I had
passes
such an
through.
extreme.
Yeah, that's what their crap passes through and cleans it out.
That's why I had an extreme reaction earlier.
So, So a lot of people, when you say gizzards, they're like, "What?"
I did.
But they're they're really clean.
Right?
Oh yeah, I was raised on gizzards. Joe's Gizzards. Yeah.
So Joe, how old is Joe then?
Well, Joe. Old Joe. Well, Joe's, I think, I don't know. Joey is about my age. He was a few years younger.
There's a couple Joes.
And that's who's there now.
Joe
that's
Joe
what's
is
up,
the dad.
Joey.
Yeah, that's
Joey.
up Joey. Yeah, Joe was the old man. Joe Bristol. When I was growing up, Joe always ran the bar, and then when Joey, a few years after he went to college for what do you call it, hotel, whatever it is, food and
hospitality.
Yeah, he did. He had some hospitality jobs. Went to college, and then his dad, I think, tried backing out a little bit. So Joey took over, and so yeah.
Are the gizzards the same as they were?
Yeah, it depends on what cooks there, though. We had Mary back in the day. I don't know where Mary's been lately, but
Mary got to come back.
Mary
made the best gizzards.
Yeah, she drained them enough. There wasn't too much batter and stuff, but they're gizzards are still good.
Dude,
they're batter.
No, but you just said they were drained enough. Does
I'm talking
that mean
about
occasion?
No, like when they
Got worried there. I was like, oh.
They throw them in the batter and then they scoop them up
Yeah.
in the basket. And if you don't shake that basket up, my wife worked there.
Oh,
My wife worked there for a little while too.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't shake that basket off, there's too much. I think there gets to be too much
Too much
breading.
oil.
Okay.
Oh, too much breading.
Breading.
I think we were both thinking you're cleaning out the.
I was
we're
like,
No, the
there's
gizzards-
poop in them.
we're like,
The gizzards are cleaned and pressure cooked and all that kind of stuff before they actually get to the fryer.
I'm glad that
So,
that's happening.
If you guys go through Potterville, just stop and try the gizzards. And I'm not saying go down to your local place and buy gizzards and eat them because that's not the same.
If I ever see freshly picked gizzards, I'm never going there.
I would
That
not.
would make me worry.
Don't ever. And a lot of times they don't bat them. Yeah, I don't like any other gizzards.
Just Joe's.
Just pretty
and
much.
Joe's is like, this is a top 3 food for you've ever eaten. Is it in that category? Top 10? Where does it rank in your food?
Yeah, I don't want to rank it right now since Joey might be listening.
Number 1.
That's number
for
1. Joey.
free gizzards, right, Joey?
Yeah, it's top 10. It's something that even, to this day, when we drive back through Potterville for anything, my wife goes, I want to stop at Joe's and get some gizzards. And of course, when we walk into Joe's, it's just a small, it's diner. What was it?
Diners,
Diners,
drive-ins,
Dives. It's just a small bar.
Guy Freire.
Dive bar. It wasn't labeled dive by Guy Freire, but it's just a little hole in the wall bar in downtown Potterville that everybody knows about. except
What
for
else
you
is
two.
in your? Yeah, I know. Now we're.
You don't have to look it up.
Well, and all of our. Now everyone's gonna know. Maybe we take that could be a funny vlog.
In my mind, I'm
Take-
driving up to Lansing this weekend. I'm like, I got to try the gizzards, but I don't want to.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Not without Luke.
No,
Yeah,
you will.
no, we
Yeah,
gotta have
have
that
Luke
mind
try
blow.
it first. You can't. So if Luke falls over, then you don't try him, right?
Yeah.
My wife always makes me try everything too.
Test for poison.
Yeah, so then
That's
no,
your
you
number
try it
one way to
first.
get you.
Yeah, I know. That's why I always say, no, I ain't trying that before you do. I don't know what you did with that.
Are there any staples of Potterville besides the gizzard that you would say, hey,
Joe's Gizzard City. Get your gizzard fix at exit 66.
There
That's
we
it.
go.
That's the
there, what would you, was it kind of like, I mean, St. Joe has also a good amount of things to do because a lot of people I hear are like, St. Joe has nothing. I mean, I feel like, we're also the type of people that can have fun doing nothing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we have our camera. We're fine wherever
We had a lot of fun doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like also it's different
But
back
when
then.
we
It
got a
makes you
little
enjoy
older,
things more.
Yeah.
yeah. I think when we got a little older, we were close to MSU campus and Lansing and all that kind of stuff. So we had them things to do
Yeah.
on that side of town. But yeah, like basically we hung out and rode our bikes around the country and found back roads and back hills and Hogs Back. It was just a place in town that was just like a big, I don't know what you call it, gravel pit, but that's where everybody hung out in Hogs Back.
Gotcha.
Hey, you want to hang out at the hog?
Hey,
house?
going to the hog.
We tipped some cows in the Hogs Back.
Did you ever tip?
I don't
cows?
think I ever did. I think we tried.
How would you
Sometimes it
even-
didn't work.
did you-
I don't know.
Did you ever?
I see it on TV, I guess.
I've seen it in the cars.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, the
Tip on
cars.
tractors.
Yeah.
Which are supposed to be cows. We got a little off.
I know we did. Where we at?
So we just kind of were talking about our the prison.
Yeah.
As you went towards the end of, before we go into the end of your career and what you
Right.
did after that, are there any, and this is putting you on the spot, and I hate when people ask this questions in podcasts and interviews, is tell me a funny story. But I feel like you're also the type of person that has been asked that enough. You have this bank of stories.
Yeah, I do got some funny stories. I mean, it's just how you deal with people, and to get somebody to kind of chill out when they're in a bad mood is, something. I like this one story because I evidently I shook a prisoner's cell down when he was at lunch or something.
Which means
which I went in his cell and
Searched
I tore it up and tried to find something contraband or something. I had to do 5 a day or 3 a day or something like that. I didn't always tear them up, but must be I was onto this guy for something. So I kind of tore it up a little bit. I probably didn't put it back together as much as I should have or whatever. And at this time we had probably 350 prisoners at the time, and we were breaking in from Chow. So that means we had like 350 prisoners leaning over the bars, waiting for us to break the doors so they could get back in their cells. And I looked down base, and this guy was Asian, and here we go again. But I could hear him coming, And I knew I just shook it and he was walking at me, kind of hard, and he was like,
How tall is he?
Yeah, he was short. He was a small guy, you know.
Very intimidating.
But I didn't know if he knew karate or anything like that, so I wasn't gonna like let him get to me. I didn't know how much he knew. I mean, I know a lot of them do. But I did hold the mic for a minute. I did. So he's walking towards me, and I'm walking, and I'm kind of sitting at my desk, and I kind of stood up from my desk, and he's walking towards me. There's 350 prisoners up there, and I did the old Karate Kid move. I went, what? And this dude stopped in his tracks. Every prisoner in that place started laughing, and he turned around and walked away. I never heard from him again.
Oh my gosh,
so that's one of the ways I can stop somebody from being pissed at me and kicking my ass with their karate moves.
You hit a Karate Kid that scared him off.
Yeah, I pulled it out. I mean, it didn't really scare you. It embarrassed him, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Everyone's because like, everybody's laughing. Like,
that's almost worse.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. Embarrassment is the biggest thing. That's how to this day, I still deal with my kids that way. I never really punished them. I just embarrassed them.
I'd rather get punished than embarrassed.
Yeah.
So that, oh my gosh.
There was them types of things, you know.
That's like a lighthearted.
Yeah, that's lighthearted and stuff. Yeah, I mean, there was times where I had this one guy. He was a white guy, and he came up to me and he said, "Hey," he said, "such and such has got some drugs on the yard right now." I'm like, "Oh, no kidding." He goes, "Yeah." So I'm in the housing unit, and I knew who the guy was. He was a black guy in the yard. It was a gang affiliation. It was a religious affiliation. And so I got on the radio with the yard sergeant, and I'm like, "Hey, that guy that's walking towards you right now, shake him down." So he shakes him down, and he calls me back. And I kind of watched it. I knew they found something because they cuffed him, and then he gets up to the control center, and he calls me and he goes, "Hey, that guy had some weed and a weapon on him. Thanks for the tip." I'm like, "All right, you know." So the next day, this guy was he thought he was really cool. The white guy thought he was really cool with me, you know, and I'm cool with everybody.
Yeah.
So he comes up to me the next day, same thing. "Hey, such and such has got some drugs, and he's out on the yard right now." I'm like, "Hey, man, thanks for the tip." Well, after about the third or fourth time, and I just kept calling my sergeant or calling the yard crew, and they'd shake him down, they'd find him and call me back, and after the third or fourth time, I realized what this guy was doing. He was trying to get guys off the yard so he could sell his drugs on the yard.
Oh.
So a couple days went by, and he never got a hold of me. You know, he never told me about anybody else that was selling drugs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he walked out of the cell one time. He didn't even kind of look at me. He just or out of the unit one time. He didn't really look at me. I'm like, I bet that he's carrying. So I called the yard sergeant. And I said, "Hey, see that white guy walking towards you right now? White guy this time?" I'm like, "Yeah, white guy this time." Shake him down. And he had drugs and weapons on him.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
So I took him off the yard. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just.
Did you ever see him again after that?
Oh, probably. I don't know. He probably didn't know that. Oh, yeah. That I was the one that set him up.
Which is
that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, for your relationship standpoint.
Well, either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's part of my job. But yeah, he might not even known that I'm the one that set him up.
Now he does.
He probably did. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, he's probably still in prison. I don't know. Who knows?
Is there any advantage to, like, if you rat someone out or you snitch? Like, is there like more time you get, like, outside, or?
Like, hey, tell us, like in the movies, you'll be like, "Tell us about Big Pablo at the end of the row."
No, I mean, we always had our snitches and stuff, but we didn't really give them too many more privileges. Okay. I mean, maybe, you know, extra microwave or something, but nothing, you know, like, hey.
What does that mean, an extra microwave?
Well, because I have to let him out to use the microwave.
Okay.
Wasn't it like I feel like I've seen, I mean, there's some of these videos.
They're locked up. The only thing I got to control them is my key.
Okay.
Unless it's general movement, which everybody gets to go to yard, or everybody go to chow and stuff like that. But yeah, if they want to use the microwave, they got to ask me. I got to let them out.
I've seen these videos around the internet. It'll be like, "This is the best prison meal," and it's like crushed up ramen noodles.
Oh, that's their prison hookup. That's what they hook up in the housing units. So yeah.
So is
they have
like
hot plates. Yeah.
How is it?
No, it's not. It's just they have hot plates that they get, and if they don't get busted with them, they use them to cook with. It's just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like a coffee pot. You know, where you put a coffee pot on a holder.
How do they?
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they make them.
How do they get the chips and stuff? Because they'll have like hot Cheetos in there.
Oh, they buy that store. There's
a prison store.
Yeah.
How do they get them? It's a money sent in from people
or yeah,
they get like an allowance?
They used to make like 35 cents a day when they were our porters or working the kitchen or something like that. They make a little bit of money, and that's their spending money. Or they, a lot of them swindle girls into sending them money. Hey baby, hey boo, you're the only one for me. Can you send me $20? Yeah, I used to monitor phone calls, and it was kind of funny. It was
that's awesome.
Because are there any super funny stories from the phone calls?
Well, this one guy, he used the phone like 3 times in one day, and I was just, for some reason, I was listening to his conversation, and the first one is, "Hey boo." He called everybody boo. I think because he didn't want to get confused. He's like, "You're my only boo. I love you, man." And then at the end of every conversation, "Hey, can you throw me $20?" And they'd have to put it in as a prison account, and then he could spend it at the store. Whatever, they could buy TVs and stuff like that.
Oh,
too.
How
really?
Wow. What's like a TV in prison? Was the currency
a TV in prison is... It was an all clear, like 12-inch clear, black and white TV back in the day. Now they have like little flat screens that are colored and stuff. But yeah, it was a black and white clear. Everything was clear plastic, so we could see through them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they could buy all that stuff with the money they either got sent from their people. We call people on their family on the streets their people,
or boo,
or
their boos,
or boo. Yeah. So this guy anyway. So this guy was on the phone. The first girl was, "Boo, can you send me $20? I'll see what I can do for you." And then I swear to God, he'd hang up the phone. He'd call somebody else and hear it ring.
That's hilarious.
And he'd say, "Hey boo, how are you? You're my only boo." And then he'd talk to him about everything, And then at the end of the conversation, "Hey, can you throw me $20 or whatever?" He did it like 4 times in one day. He had one. Each one of them was their own boo. But yeah, that's part of the way they got the money. Or if their family. Their people on the streets sent them money.
So how was the store set up? Like, because in my
mind, back in the day, back when I first started, it was like a trailer. It was in the middle of the yard, and they had to line up for the store. They had tokens, so they could get tokens through like their account. So
like $1 is equal to 1 prison token, something like that.
Yeah, there's token. Yeah, different token. It was like
Chuck E. Cheese.
It was like kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese token, but it would have like $1 or $2 or $4 or 25 cents or 50 cents. I don't. That was real early in my career. I dealt with tokens for a few years, but not very. So they'd go to the store and they'd buy whatever they wanted off the commissary. There'd be a prisoner behind a cage with a state employee with them, and that prisoner they'd point out what they want, they throw it in the bag, and then they book. And if they didn't get stopped on the way back to the housing unit and get stabbed in their shit.
Well, yeah, if stuff was probably stolen. What would you even do?
Yeah.
Like, hey, he stole my TV. What do you go in there and get the TV? Do you believe what they say? Or?
A lot of times they don't even tell you.
But just happens.
Well, they either take care of it themselves, or they don't.
Like, hey, if you say anything,
if I went into if a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, that guy over there stole my TV," and I went and took that TV back from that guy, then that guy's a snitch, and he might get $150.
Yeah.
Which means you get cut from here to here, and that's 150 stitches to put it in. Look it up in the Urban Dictionary. It's called $150.
I did not know that.
That's $150.
I just thought you meant get killed.
No, they don't always die.
I didn't ever realize.
It's a marking too.
It's like from ear to ear, under the chin, or
chin to chin. It's called $150.
Wow. And that's if you
150 stitches. That's why they call it $150.
And that's if you snitch.
Most of the time, people that
did you ever see it?
Snitch. Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I seen a guy with his neck wide open. I mean, a couple of guys. Yeah.
So
this store line. So this one time I was working the yard, and I heard somebody on the tower saying, "We got a runner." I'm like, there's not very much where you can run because there's fences all the way around. I mean, they're not going to run too far.
Running laps.
So this,
he's training.
Yeah, well, there's always runners that run laps, but this guy was like running. It's a prison that I worked at. There was a hospital attached to it, so it's Dwayne Wise Hospital. It was only prison hospital, prison hospital in the state of Michigan. Then we had other secure units, like different hospitals in different areas that you could take prisoners to and get worked on, and they had secure units in. But this was the only state-ran hospital in the state of Michigan for prisoners. And so we had this hospital that was across the yard. It was on the other side of the yard, and the prisoners could walk in there. Most of the time, they had to have passes and stuff to go to ER, first aid, or whatever. And this guy was running. And he ran by me, and when he ran by me, I'm like, what the heck? I got squirted with blood.
Oh my.
And then about 10 steps past me, this dude did a somersault. So about 10 yards past me, this dude just did a somersault, because I'm like, I think he's been hit, and he did a somersault, and we get to him. and he had a puncture wound in his neck that hit
Not $1.50.
No, he didn't have a $1.50. He had a puncture, so they used like an ice pick type thing on him to stab.
Where did they get an ice pick?
Oh yeah, how would they like?
You guys, how long are we gonna be here?
Hey, we have this is
All right. We're here. This is an all-nighter, right?
We're
This is
taking
an
a
all-nighter.
little intermission from the run.
Right.
How are Shanks?
Yeah. So, shanks are made out of anything, man. Anything you see in this room could be made out of a shank. So we have to kind of control.
I'm looking around now.
Yeah. Anything.
You better watch out. I'm eyeing down those glasses.
Like if you see like file cabinets and stuff, we had all these new file cabinets brought into the housing units one time, and all of a sudden we started finding these like ice pick type shanks, and we're like, where the hell's all this stuff coming from? Well, we find out that there's like 3 shanks in every locker.
Holy
And
cow!
they're like attached to the hinges and stuff, and they were taking that apart, and they were making the shanks out of them. Anything like anything from a pencil to a tooth. You guys have all heard the toothbrush and a razor blade where they melt it together. That's what you get. About 50
There's no way they still do razor blades, right? Or I guess
not now. They did up until about a year before I left. They were razor blades. Now I think the guys have to check out electric razors, and they have to like
That's
share them on
smart.
each unit. Yeah. But that was the level one I worked at. So yeah, I've got tons of pictures of shanks that were made out of all different kinds of
Wow.
Gosh.
Yeah, I'm on a Facebook group that
Shanks only.
Yeah, shanks only.
It's only 10,000 people.
10,000 people. No, it's like a retirement thing or something. And there was a museum down at the old place I talked to you about, Central, North Side, Central, and South Side. By the time I left, Central was closed all the way down, and we were only using North Side and South Side. So there was a museum in what we called 7 Block, and they had a bunch of pictures and stuff. And we had guys that would like inspectors and stuff that would keep boards of shanks, and so you could show new employees, hey, this is what you're.
This is
looking
a collect.
for.
Hey, look at this collectible.
I found
There's
15 in one cell one time.
Holy cow!
15 shanks. in
He's
one
just a
cell.
collector at that point.
I got a write up from the warden at the time. Hi, Tom. He still sees me this day. He's like, that's another funny story in prison.
What is it?
He's
Wait,
Facebook.
let's get into
yeah,
it. What
he's
is
a
it? What is the
Facebook guy. Anyway,
Facebook?
so this guy, let's go back to the
Yeah,
yard.
yeah.
So,
Then we'll
so
go.
the guy left the he must have been, somebody must have took a shit and he got stabbed, and then he took off running. So his carotid artery was cut.
Jeez.
So when this guy was running, his heartbeat, every time his heart beat, blood would shoot out like 10 feet.
Gosh,
Well, that's what was
Why was he
happening.
running then?
Because he was scared and he wanted to get to the ER.
Yeah.
He thought that was the best way to get there. If he would have stopped and put pressure on it, I don't
Maybe
know.
stop getting his heartbeat going. Fast.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, he took out running.
I
Like,
better run.
boop, boop, boop.
I guess that's such
So
a
he did-
unique
so,
situation.
yeah.
How would you know how to react?
He was dead on the ground.
Oh man.
Oh,
I laughed about stuff.
hey, you're talking.
No, that-
I'm very demented, or I'm demented.
Not
like,
demented.
No,
like evil.
You want those bad things to happen.
I laugh at crazy shit.
Oh,
Hey, we do too.
I mean,
it's awful when
yeah.
we get and that's something we're trying to learn how to be better podcast hosts about talking. Like when people start getting really serious, one of them will look at each other and we're like, oh no, we're gonna start laughing.
I
at
laugh
something.
all the time at everything.
Because
That's
You
why
laugh
it's
at
good. That's why it's so.
People
feels
my
so-
wife gets so pissed at me
Oh,
of the stuff I
yeah.
laugh at.
Oh yeah.
She's like,
well,
that's
we
not
run into
supposed
that
to be
too.
funny. That's not supposed to be funny.
Yeah, I feel like that happens. Like teacher, whatever it'll be, they're like, hey,
Right.
don't laugh right now. It's like that's just I just can't help it. I'm just laughing at everything.
So I'm old. Where were we going after the prison?
You said something about Tom.
Oh yeah,
Said-
Tom Phil. That's a funny story. So back in the '90s, Mr. Phillips was the warden,
Okay.
and we had a bring your family to work day.
Okay, what does that look like?
Oh, this is my daughter. I'm gonna
Oh my
Well,
God.
it had to be adult. I don't think we could bring like our 12-year-old daughters. in
Okay,
there or
that
anything
makes
like that and
sense.
pimp
Yeah.
them out, or 12-year-old boys and pimp them out. But it was like adults. I didn't
Yeah.
bring my family. I didn't. Like I said, I didn't want them to deal with what I dealt
keep
with.
those
Yeah,
lives,
that was
kind
all
of.
different. So, I did take a couple people on prison story or tours, but that's after I got into administration. So, anyways, Tom Phillips brought his wife, and I was working in a housing unit, and we had a couple observation cells right across from the desk, which means a prisoner that might be acting up or wants to commit suicide or something like that. We put them in these cells, and they're right by the desk so we can see them. And we had them both open. And Tom's going to say this different than what I did because he doesn't want his wife to know it was him. But he said he has his wife go in the cell, and then he kicks it shut, and it's like, and she's like, "Oh, I'm locked in here," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're locked in there." And I said, "And that's the cell that I've been trying to get maintenance down here to fix because we can't get it back open." And Tom's like, it was a Sunday too, so we didn't have maintenance guys there, and Warden Phillips was like, no, you're just joking. I grabbed my keys. We had these big keys that are, the prison cell keys, and I had them on my side. And I stuck it in there, and I acted like I couldn't change it. I couldn't open it. I was like, no, Tom.
Was it actually? Could it actually not open, or?
Oh no, it could actually open.
Oh, you had me convinced.
No, it could actually open. Yeah. So I let him call around and try to get maintenance down there. And his wife was panicking and stuff before I finally went over and kicked it open. And he's like,
Oh yeah.
So he was pissed. His wife was not pissed.
Well, but
they were
all the time.
So right? So Tom went his way, and I went Warden Phillips. I'm sorry, but I got to respect the name. He went his way, and I went my way. And then a couple years ago, we kind of hooked up on my Facebook chat thing, whatever it is, group. And he started telling stories about, he's like, remember the time you locked my wife? I'm like, no, you locked her. No, I didn't. You did. I'm like, no, you did. Another time
so evil.
with Warden Phillips,
did.
The prison hospital. So we were getting ready to move this guy because he was going to a higher level facility. He was actually like mentally ill, psychotic, so he was like, just going crazy and stuff. And we had him in one of the waiting rooms at the prison hospital, and we had to suit up, a goon squad up or cell extraction team up.
Which was like, what did they carry? Did they have like rifle? Was it guns, or did they just?
No, no guns or weapons inside the prison.
Just because it had risk.
That makes sense.
No stick. We didn't have sticks. We didn't have guns. No, we had.
Oh,
pens.
really?
We
No
had
sticks?
pens and keys.
Oh, I didn't ever. I always figured
later on in my career, we did a lot of gas, pepper spray when I was young. But later on, they started carrying tasers, so that was fun to watch.
Okay,
I loved watching people.
That was your only way of protecting yourself, mostly than pepper spray.
Well, that wasn't even protection then. That was only for cell extractions. We didn't carry nothing for protection.
Then what was protecting you?
Me.
Fair enough. Honestly,
he's gonna hit you with that.
I know karate. No, me, my pen, my mind, my keys. It's just whatever I could do to de-escalate. Hopefully, we didn't have too many people get geeked up. The worst problems we had were people that were drinking the spudgers. Another whole story. So another story with Warden Phillips was he was like, "Hey, remember that?" So we had in the prison hospital. Yeah, we had this guy locked up in there, and we suited up, which is just like a shield. And then a couple guys.
Yeah, well, I've seen the people with shields
the first guy goes in with the shield. The guy starts fighting. You pin him down and you cuff him or something. We didn't even. I don't even think we used pepper spray back at the hospital because there's too many other sick people in there or whatever. But so this guy was in the prison waiting room, and we were outside, and it was all those doors were all glass and the walls were all glass. And he was just kind of sitting on the bench, and he was talking all shit, like, well, I can't wait for you guys to come in here so I can beat your asses and da-da-da.
Oh, this is the guy that was
the guy that's getting ready to get moved out to a higher level facility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is where we get geeked up, It's like, all right, man.
And you're going in there with the shield to go get him?
Well, I didn't have the shield.
You're just viewing, or are you just there?
No, we're kind of waiting. We're waiting. We got the camera going. So it's a shield guy, a camera guy, and maybe 3 or 4 other.
Why
officers.
A camera guy?
For like legal reasons?
Yeah, for legal reasons.
Okay.
If they say you hit me, you're like, sorry.
Right. Why
you hit us first?
Why the camera, right?
Yeah.
Why the camera, you ask? So I'm standing behind the camera guy, and I'm back there, and I'm talking. I'm talking my crap, but not out loud because I want to make sure that that this guy sees me, but the camera can't hear me and stuff. So I'm behind the camera, and I'm like.
Oh, you're like hyping him up?
Yeah, I'm getting all
that is awesome.
Like, come on. And so we end up going in there and we snag the guy out, throw him in the van, and a couple hours later, Warden Phillips calls me in the office and he goes, "Hey, come here for a minute." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I want you to look at my monitor."
Oh, no.
And I go, "Okay." And I'm looking in the monitor. I'm like, "Yeah, this guy was a real asshole. He wanted to kick our asses and stuff." And he goes, "Hey, look in that mirror right there on that back wall." And I started looking up in that mirror that was in the back wall in this waiting room what the camera was on. and you could see me in the background.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
He goes, I know you were behind the camera, but you got to watch out for mirrors too.
He was okay with you doing it.
He kind of was okay.
Yeah,
he had to check me. He had to say something to me.
Yeah, well,
let me know that.
Yeah.
More like a warning, like, hey, we want you to do that.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't like I did something on camera that I'm going to get fired for, but you're not supposed to geek him up like that. But I was young, I was young, and I wanted to fight too. Yeah, he was getting more amped. And it probably, I just happened to be the guy in the front. I'm sure everybody else behind me was doing the same thing because we were all young and dumb, and that was like our days of fighting. That's what we got to do for fun sometimes.
Just amped.
Yeah, we didn't want to, we didn't try to, but if we had to, we would.
Did any of those situations ever go really wrong? Like someone was in there and then they went to brace him and that guy just totally took out the guy with the shield?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
What was there? Was there?
I had a guy, the big dude that we called him the Russian something, right? The Russian.
How big was he?
He was a big dude, and we hit him with pepper spray like 3 times. And he was opening his mouth and going,
oh my
eating
God.
the pepper spray, and we're all like around.
That's terrifying.
He's like, it's
super. Got a gas mask on. By the time you get in there and you're wrestling around, this guy's got gas all over him, and he's sweating, you're sweating. This shit gets in your eyes. It blows up the whole housing unit. Everybody starts bitching because there's gas in the housing unit and stuff. So he was just eating it. I've never seen a guy just sit there and just open it. He opened it. Most guys like take a wet towel and they put it over their face and they try to avoid it. Stuff. This guy was just like.
Oh my!
And why was he Russian? Actually,
I think he was Russian. Yeah, I don't know if he was just a big. I don't know.
That was breakfast.
I don't know if Russians eat gas for breakfast or pepper spray for breakfast or not. But
Right in his mouth.
I mean, I know they drink a lot of vodka, but did he?
I am Russian.
Yeah, I am.
I am
pepper spray eater.
That could be a super.
Yeah, that could be a super. You can't
super
take me
villain.
down. I wish I've actually even after the tasers, I've seen guys get hit with tasers and just rip them out.
Oh, I'm
most of the time you see it on TV and those guys fall down fast.
Yeah,
a lot of times they do, but I've seen guys that just like. And rip it up. And then you're like, oh shit. Now we got to go in.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do then?
And we didn't have tasers until later on in my career. So luckily we had.
Did you ever carry like batons?
No, never batons or pepper spray or anything.
I'm still set on that. This guy ate the pepper.
Yeah,
that would literally take me out of my mind. I'd be like,
literally. Then we had to kick the door open and go in and get the guy right after that. And we're all like, oh man.
Oh my gosh! Did it ever? Were there any extractions that didn't even need that? Like the guy would just get out and go? I'm sure there had to be some, right?
Well, there's lots of times where we'd get all dressed up and, most of the time the bigger guys were part of the extraction teams or the goon squads or whatever you want to call them. What do they call them? I don't remember. ERT, emergency response teams and stuff like that. There is actually, after a while, they actually had designated people that went to training for it and stuff. So they were ERT.
In case, hey, by the way, guys, you might come across the supervillain pepper spray eater.
Yeah. That big Russian down in 3 block, don't ever pepper spray him. Just go in after him.
He likes it.
Because it makes it worse. It really does. Because
probably
then there's pepper spray everywhere, and our gas masks are falling over because he's trying to fight us, and we're trying to pin him down. And
what do you even do then? Like, because this guy, he's pepper sprayed. Did you guys like wrestle him down, or what did you do?
Yeah, hopefully the guy with the shield goes in there and gets him pinned enough to where the other 3 guys can go in and two take his legs and 2 take his upper body or whatever.
He won't go that far if he does get through.
Yeah, we were never trained back in my day. We just did what we had to do to get a guy out of a cell if we needed to come out.
Were there any other super villain type story? Like someone did something you're like, this literally feels like it's from a movie. I see you smiling.
I mean, there's tons and tons of, like I said, I worked 28 and a half years there, so I've seen tons of stuff. And I did, later on, I could read files because they were easier to get to, and a lot of them were on the computer and stuff, so you could just click on something and read files. And, it's amazing that this guy that you've been talking to for like 3 weeks is now, you find out that he's a serial killer and he killed half his family and jumped up on the truck.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
And then, the next time you got talking to me like, hey, dude, did this really happen yet? Yeah, those were my in-laws, and it was Halloween, or it was Thanksgiving, and I went in the house, and he was pissed at his wife or something, and so he went in the house, and his wife's parents were there, and he killed them first, and then his wife's family, like brothers or something, pulled up in a truck, and he jumped out of the house with the shotgun and jumped up on the hood, started blasting people in the truck and stuff. I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize that this guy was that bad. And I'd been talking to him for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Like a normal person, but that's why you don't want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he wasn't in there to kill more people. Not that there wasn't people that were like that.
Yeah, you just
there was definitely people like that I ran into. Yeah, there's other people you run into. You know, like I knew Jack Coworking. I don't know if
I'm not
you guys
sure.
are too young for that.
Yeah, we're not even
for all the older people. He was Dr. Death in the state of Michigan, so he was.
Oh my gosh,
I recognize the name Dr. Death.
He
Yeah,
was assisted suicide.
yeah, yep.
So he invented machines that were assisted suicide. So like that you can take your pet to the vet if they get sick and they're suffering, and you can give them a shot.
Yeah,
He made machines that would that the people that were so bad off, or the families would come see him or whatever, and the person that was dying or whatever would have to push the button, but it would inject the stuff that would end up killing him and stuff. He ended up getting charged, and he was on 60 Minutes and all that kind of stuff. But
that's such a weird. I mean,
I knew White Boy Rick when he was in prison.
That rings a bell, but I don't.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
There was a movie a couple years ago about White Boy Rick. He was a white boy that sold drugs in Detroit, and so they called him White Boy Rick, and it was a big thing back in the day because he was supposedly working undercover with the mayor, or not with the mayor, but against the mayor of Detroit. So when he gets sentenced to prison, they left him in there for years and years and years and years. And he just got out recently. Actually, he had to go to Florida and do a couple of years because while he was in prison, him and his sister were doing something with cars and selling something about cars. I don't know. But,
I thought you were going to take that.
I also thought.
No, not that way. No,
he was doing stuff with his sister.
I was like, what?
No.
White Boy Rick. Yeah.
White Boy Rick, you like his sister.
White Boy Rick.
Like them visits with his sister.
Conjugal visit.
Never had him in the state of Michigan.
Okay, now this is kind of.
Now we're jumping.
We are going to do a little
jump,
just because I do think there could be a potential episode 2, and I don't want to give away everything.
Yeah, there could be
everything.
Put me in my prison mindset. Let me have a couple beers and come back in here. We'll talk.
We'll get some beers on the table.
We'll talk prison.
We'll just be like,
that's when I do my most talking, and people are like, I'm like, no.
Hey, if that's what you need,
I promise there's no
loosen up, man. Loosen up, right?
Take this water. Why is it dark?
So this one
water.
One last story with
yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are going to get this or not. So Guardzilla there was a group of guys coming in from one of the counties, and one of the guys, because we always got their pink slips and it always said what they did on there. Mm-hmm. And this one guy was back for like the second time of having sex with animals, and this time it happened to be a sheep that he got busted.
Wow.
What about sheep does it for someone? That's all I got to say.
And how do you,
have you ever seen the back of a sheep?
Let's just say
that's going to be the funniest guy ever. I've ever seen the back of a sheep.
I really don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what
that
would attract you to that, but this guy was definitely attracted to animals or sheep or whatever.
Ooh.
It's nasty.
So we knew they were coming in, and it was on a van or something, and the county dropped off, and Guardzilla brings them in, and I'm one of the first guys they talk to. I'm at the front, I'm at the back door, and I'm like, welcome to prison. Bam, I slam the door and all this kind of stuff. And at this time there was like 8 of them in this little holding area we had where the county's dropping them off. And Curly says, or Guardzilla says, hey, so which one of you guys been on the lam? And you know what being on the lam means, that you're running from the law, or that's called being on the lam.
Yeah.
So 6 of the 7 guys dropped to their knees, started laughing, and one guy's just standing there like this. I go, I think it's him.
Oh my god, I love how much
that is awesome.
Oh, we had so many. We had a lot of good times. I mean, we had a lot of fun stories. We could mess with people sometimes, and then
you needed that fun to keep your head.
Oh yeah, prisoners messed with us too. I mean, they'd get to know us, and they'd do little pranks on us and mess with us too. So
yeah. I think
all right, we can jump off this.
And I'm only jumping
just Portt's prison stories.
Now I am doing a little jump. Now I know everyone's gonna be like, Luke, I hate you.
Yeah,
you were getting all the good. But I am really also want to hear from you is you took what I thought this huge leap. And at first, when I first heard this, was scared, is you came to the high school I went to, St. Joe, as our detention monitor, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this guy worked at a prison. He's going to kill us. He's not going to let us breathe.
Yeah, that's why I tried to start out.
And then I first saw you and talked to you, and I was like, that guy's great. Wonder what he's doing at the school. And they're like, that was the detention monitor. I was like, oh. I was like,
Yeah.
well, not that I'd go to detention or anything.
No, you would. You
I think
need
my
to
only one thing was I was late a couple days. You're like, just take this class. I'm not bringing you in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I think for a while they wanted us to do an online thing.
Yeah, we won't get into that part. But I want to get into working with kids. I mean, it must have felt like a cakewalk, or was it almost harder in a way talking to a kid versus a prisoner? Would you use the same strategies? Not that you were like
not always, but when I got hired as this detention supervisor, I always thought that I never liked to detain people.
Yeah.
I'd rather have them. I'd rather help them. You know what I mean? Help. Like what I say is detention and I don't know, but not detention. I didn't always consider myself a detention supervisor. I considered myself. Man, I can't remember the word I always used.
Detention or
not detention, but like. Instead of like detaining somebody, I'd rather help them get through what they're going through, and then kind of talk
like
about
counselor in a way.
Yeah, kind of. But it didn't start out like that. They started out with they wanted me to go in there and be the bad guy. We're gonna tell them that you're an ex-prison guard, and it's gonna scare them all, and then then you can keep them on their toes.
That's what happened.
That's not me. I'd rather sit down and have a conversation with somebody, figure out what their issues are, and help them solve it.
Yeah.
So that's where I was at. So after, like my first year, and that was the COVID year, so it was only a partial year. You noticed that I started walking around more and talking to more people. I mean, I didn't meet you till we didn't really have our first conversation until you were a senior.
Yeah, which
and
I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Just because we never.
I just started in that year. I started thinking, I need to talk to more people. I need to make more connections. I need to figure out what other people are going through, not just the people that needed to talk to me.
Yeah.
So I started hanging out like in the morning.
Or at lunch.
I'd get there in the morning, in the morning early, and sit at the back door, and always have prisoners. Students. Now you got to switch here.
Basically.
Students.
Yeah. I mean, that's
we're
no
talking students now, students that would stop by and tell me about their issues, their problems, and we try to solve little things right there. That way they didn't have to get in trouble, I had a lot of teachers that called me and said, hey, can you talk to this kid? And then I had some teachers that didn't really respect the way that I was doing things. But, that, it is what it is.
Yeah, you can't win.
Yeah. I mean, I gained a lot of respect, I think, and that was my whole point at the end, is just making connections and making sure that everybody, not just the kids that I had to deal with on a daily basis, but everybody that was at the school. I wanted to get to know everybody. I wanted to get to know where everybody came from and what everybody's aspirations or dreams were.
And I'm very glad you did that. And I waited a long time to officially. I mean, I've thanked you.
Right.
I gave you the note and everything, but now officially, I want to thank you. I mean, we would not be in the position we're in now if it wasn't.
Oh, I think you guys would have made it fine by yourself.
But I
think that's
the help you gave us. I think
that's you just being your humble self.
No,
but let me again walk through. I mean,
you tell me how it happened.
I have this down to a T.
Okay.
Because people have asked.
I'm old. I probably forgot.
How did you meet this Oscar-winning short film director and cinematographer? Let me tell you.
Was it a documentary or short film?
It was like a documentary and short film. It was like a combination, basically. Yeah. Well, that's kind of because we've kind of first connected.
Yeah, that's how I started talking.
You're like, hey, I saw you play. Yeah, at least the table. That's kind of. I can't give people all the lingo of like, oh, he sat it. Oh, he was judged.
I did some announcing, and then I started talking to you guys about music that we wanted to play and the stuff that the athletic director wouldn't let us.
Oh yeah, that was a whole nother. That was We're like, we're the lamest school by far. Can you please play something that sounds okay? He's like, I'm sorry. No,
that's it.
But
I love Gizzard.
Yeah, you came over and we kind of talked, and you kind of were like, what are you guys interested in? And then you heard. I mean, I can't remember exact. I tell people I told you about I do film stuff, and then. You said
you make videos.
Yeah, I make videos. I do film. I want to be.
I messed around with that. Yeah,
I think you were asking college, and I think everyone was like business, film.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, okay, you kind of were like, oh, maybe that piqued your interest somewhat. Of like, this is a little bit. Not that many people do film stuff.
Right.
But in your case, someone did in the past, and you're like, hey. I know Sam Davis. I know he was best friends with my son, still is. And here's he's in California. Let me give you his email address. I'll try to contact him for you.
Right.
See if anything sticks, or maybe you can get in contact.
Right.
And this is also credit to you being a good person and Sam being an incredibly good person.
I mean, and you being a good person, because I wouldn't just give that opportunity to anybody. I mean, I didn't throw anybody's name out there to Sam. You're the only person I've ever thrown that out to, and I mean, not that I've seen people that had your. When I sat down and we were talking, you were talking about the the filmmaking and that's your aspirations, that your dream, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and I started thinking, then I'm like, well, maybe I can hook him up with Sam. I don't know. And my son had just got back from
close either. Yeah.
Yeah, my son had just got back from California. He went out. Him and his wife went out and visited.
Yeah, because
Sam.
he had the
So
Oscar.
he had that Oscar.
You were sure.
So
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah, you
so
showed me.
I kind of walked away and I was kind of sitting up on the stage and I was looking for this picture that my son sent me. I think before I even brought the whole
you're
Sam
like,
thing
I'll
up.
find the photo. Or
Something like that. Let me find this photo. So I went back and I found the photo and I showed it. I said, maybe I can hook you up with this guy. And I know Sam because Sam reminds me a lot of you, or you remind me a lot of him when he was growing up, and that's what he did a lot. I mean, they went around, and I mean, I don't know how many videos I've seen with my son and their friends in it that was just like crazy stuff that Sam came up with, and they did a video. There was music videos, there was guys getting kidnapped videos in trunks and stuff like that we always look. So when you told me, you said, yeah, this is this is what I really want to do, and that's why I said, and like I said, I wouldn't just throw anybody's name out there, Sam. I got to know you a little bit, and I knew that that's what you want to do, and I knew Sam well enough that he wouldn't get mad at me if he was busy. He'd tell me he was busy or he couldn't do it, but he wouldn't get mad at me for asking. But he's like, no, yeah, give me his email and I'll email him. And Sam doesn't really talk like that. Sam, he talks like, hey, no, he doesn't talk like that.
Sam in our minds is like one of the coolest guys.
Yeah, Sam
is so cool.
When we saw him how he was dressed, we're like, he's so
cool.
I literally,
when I seen that picture with him and his dog that you guys were buying, you sent it to me. Oh my God, I'm like, Sam. That's not any of my other son's friends.
Well, funny story. When we took that photo right after, Sam and I were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Because we had like almost a 2-hour conversation with him.
Yeah. And it flew by.
Wow. We actually we were kind of nervous. Like, how are we going to talk to this guy we've only barely talked to? And that's, I think, maybe what
he's way laid down a little.
Oh, yeah. He's so nice.
Yeah.
But I remember looking up. The funny part is he had this all black outfit.
Yeah, he did.
I was searching.
Kind of a beard.
He kind of had a little beard. I was searching for the black pants and the black jacket. Because I wanted to look like that.
Oh, you did?
Like, oh my gosh.
That's how you have to dress if you want to be a director or videographer, right? This is how they dress. So this is how I'm going to dream.
And I don't know. He's so busy. I don't know if he'll see. And what we'll have to do is you'll have to send him this and say, check this out and say, hey, we talked about you at the end. Just so
you guys, I noticed you guys, he does have a Facebook.
Yeah. And
are you guys friends on Facebook?
I'm friends with him on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm also
getting on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I know I know he's so busy, so I don't want to be like, check this out.
I get it.
Watch this hour.
That's my son always says, don't bug Sam. He's busy. I'm like, I know, I'm not really.
But he's also,
but you don't really bug Sam. I mean,
he's just living life, enjoying it.
He is.
So I think that'd be funny for him to hear. I was like, I think I should dress like him now.
And you got a dog that you walk around.
Next time he sees me, I'm exact same thing.
Stop for a frappe.
We did. We went to this like super trendy coffee shop. He's like, let's go to.
Yeah, he's been out there. He's been out in LA.
Frog. He said Frog Town.
Yeah,
we
text us, hey, you want to meet at Frog Town? We're like, I don't know.
Yeah, we do.
And we asked his uncle who lives there, and he's lived there for like 20 years. We're like,
we can't be uncool and be like, what's Frogtown?
Right.
We're like, to my uncle who we were saying, what's Frogtown? He's like, I think it's this place. So thank God we got to the right place.
Right.
And he shows up.
Did you guys drive around out there? Or did somebody drive you?
He drove us. His uncle.
My uncle and aunt drove us around, and they were so awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, so I kind of introduced you to Sam. And he emailed you back, or you guys got?
Oh yeah, and then we did a Zoom call with him and talked for a while. And now we're still building up our relationship, obviously. Right.
But you guys had to go out there for something.
Yeah, we went out there for our own job. So
how'd that one go?
It went really good. We were out. We filmed a girls' softball. My cousin's girls' softball team. They were on a team, so we just did their training videos and photos. And I mean, the parents in California didn't mind paying $150 for a kid.
Yeah.
Got 10 kids, covered our flights, got us out there.
Oh, good.
And my aunt and uncle are incredible people.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
So
nice.
I mean, without Sam, without my aunt and uncle, that California trip is not nearly anything like it could have been. So, and I mean, that's kind of, I mean, obviously that's a really long version.
Right.
Because people always ask me, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, film. it goes, Mr. Portt told me this, Mr. Portt, great guy, all these things trying to bump. And so I'm glad I could kind of finally.
I'm an emotional guy now too. You can see me tearing up. But I'm glad I could help you.
I feel so, I don't know how. I know you told me the only way you can repay me is by succeeding.
That's exactly right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, how can I was like, that's the only way. Another level. So even when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, I think back.
Someday I'm going to see my name on the credits.
Yeah.
And thank Mr. Portt.
It's going to be, the film's just going to be called Mr. Portt.
You want to do a film? Yeah, you want to do a film on me?
You wrote me something crazy like, all right, how you can repay me is making me this huge movie and giving me this amount.
Yeah, right.
And at that time, it would have been
I want to be the star.
Okay.
I want to be the star in a movie. You know?
Which I think you could.
I haven't acted since I was a high school. I was a lead actor in all my theater class, in all the plays in high school. Mr. Dave was my theater teacher, and me and him got along great. And so, most of my, my aspirations weren't college, so most of my classes were wood shop and theater.
Which is
that was my senior year.
Yeah, those are more fun.
I had like 3 wood shop classes my senior year, and basic math my freshman year. That's the only math I went through, so I can't. The math that we go through now, I'll sit in Mr. Belbo's class quite a bit, in the mornings and stuff. And I'd learned more math when I was going through high school. So I liked that too. And that got me to, get to know more people too. So anyways, so you guys ended up going out to California.
Yeah.
Sam helping you out.
That was awesome. And I mean, basically, so if you, I knew he would. This is almost, I feel this is such a tough place when someone does something really good like you, because how do you even respond, right? It's like you can be like, thank you, that's pretty much all.
Because you helped us out so much.
That California trip almost doesn't happen. My short film doesn't get helped as much. We don't even go on a film set. It's like one little touch of just like,
it was a 5-minute conversation that we had, and you just told me what you. Yeah, that's the biggest thing about growing up and meeting people is, I've taught my kids the same thing is, don't ever get upset with somebody and start. You never know who somebody is until you really get to know them. You know what I mean? So like if I get pissed at you and I call you all kinds of names right now, what if I have to come back 2 years later and I'm sitting in front of you in an interview? You never know who that person is that's going to help you out or get you to get to the places you need to get.
Yeah, but it's also it's not like I would almost say that's a good way to think about it, but also don't be like, oh, I'm only doing these things because I want to be helped back. And I think that's just the type of person you are. And I'm glad we got to talk.
That's the type of person I am now.
Yeah.
I wasn't always like that. When I first started working at the prison, I was working at level 4. Most of them guys are doing a long time, so there's not really much you can help them with. You can still get along with them, but there's not much you can help them with.
Yeah.
When I moved on and I moved up to administration a little bit. I was administrative assistant for a warden at a level 1 facility for a little while. And then I ended up doing grievances and hearings. But those guys at that facility, a lot of them had less than 2 or 3 years to do. So they still, a lot of them were young, so they still had a chance. So those guys I didn't mind helping or trying to give them, I couldn't call them, I couldn't say, hey, here's Sam's number or anything like that.
That would be Sam's like, I got 10 numbers.
Why you keep that? And Sam would never swear.
Yeah, no.
So that's not Sam at all either. No. But so that's just the way I have been my whole life. I've always liked to see people laugh and see people succeed. I've seen awesome. A lot of failures in my life, so I don't want to see that much anymore. Yeah, I want the opposite of that.
And you helped us so much. I mean, we wouldn't be even close to where we are right now, I feel like.
Right.
If Luke hadn't talked to you in lunch.
Yeah, so what'd he say? Did he come home and he'd say, hey, check this out? Well,
I was like, the first time, I think I called him right after. I might have called, actually, I think I called him in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like,
you
I was literally like, oh my gosh.
And you didn't think I was just bullshit and that I didn't really know.
I didn't think.
Yeah.
I'm still young and naive.
Right.
Yeah. That would happen.
Yeah, I'm not the guy that was like,
and I was like, why would
girls in shorts or anything like that? Just telling a story.
Why would he say any of this stuff?
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Why would he ever do that? And I kind of just want to end it again by saying thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough, obviously. And I feel like it taught me I want to do that for someone else in my life.
Someday you're going to, pay me back.
Pay you back.
By doing what?
Hey,
By succeeding.
Succeeding.
Yes.
Exactly. Both of you guys. That's
Yeah.
all I want you to do is succeed. So later on, when I'm old and my teeth are falling out, I help them guys out.
we're gonna put you on a robot. We're gonna put you on a robot and make you live forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes Scott. Hi, guys.
See the new Tom Cruise? You're the actor, right? In the oh no, I better not bring that one up. I was going to say the director, but that's the guy that's in prison forever.
Yeah, we will.
Harry Einstein.
Before we get carried away, thank you guys so much
Yeah,
for
we're good,
listening.
man.
This has been Scott Portt,
Yeah.
Mr. Portt to us.
Yeah.
Have a great rest of your day.
You guys have a wonderful career.
Thank you.
And let's do this again.
Oh,
Yes,
for
for
sure.
sure.
This is awesome.
I'll have some drinks first.